Welcome back. Today we're doing a deep dive into something called Aichmophobia. Seems a bit pointy, doesn't it?
Huh, it definitely does. And that's exactly what it is, essentially. Aichmophobia is this really potent, often irrational fear directed specifically at sharp objects.
Right. Not just, being careful with a knife, but an actual fear.
Exactly. It goes beyond normal caution. It can be quite intense for people who experience it.
And the name itself, Aichmophobia, you mentioned pointy. It comes from Greek, yeah,
It does, yeah. It breaks down quite neatly. You've got aichme,
which means point.
precisely point or spearhead,
hmm
and then phobos, which most people probably recognize as meaning fear.
So literally fear of points. Makes sense.
hmm And you might sometimes hear other names too, like bolonophobia or maybe anditophobia.
Oh, interesting. Same thing, basically.
Yeah, they pretty much cover the same ground, that strong aversion to sharp stuff.
Okay. Now, one thing I've noticed or maybe heard is that ichmophobia often gets used almost specifically for, well, needles. Why is that connection so common?
That's a really good point, and yeah, it does come up a lot. Well, technically, aichmophobia is the broad fear of sharp things.
Like knives, scissors, anything pointy.
Right. But the fear of needles, especially in a medical setting like getting a shot, that's often given its own more specific label,
Right.
usually called needle phobia, or the more clinical term is trypanophobia.
Trypanophobia. Okay, so that's really zeroed in on the medical needles, the injections.
Exactly. It focuses on that extreme anxiety around hypodermic needles and medical procedures involving them. So someone with general aichmophobia might dislike being near scissors.
But the sheer terror of an injection, that might be more squarely trypanophobia. Though I guess in casual chat, people might just say ashmophobia for both.
That definitely happens. The
Yeah,
lines can get a bit blurry in everyday language. It's useful to know the distinction, though.
absolutely. And speaking of distinctions, there's another thing sometimes mentioned alongside this visual looming syndrome. How does that fit in or not fit in?
Ah, yeah, visual looming syndrome. It's different. It's quite fascinating, actually.
Oh, so.
Well, it's not really about the fear of being harmed by the sharp object. It's more about a feeling of discomfort, sometimes even pain.
Just from seeing it.
Yeah, just from looking at a sharp object that's nearby. The visual stimulus itself triggers a negative physical or sensory reaction, not necessarily fear.
Okay, that is a key difference. So Aichmophobia is, I'm scared this sharp thing might hurt me, while visual looming is more like, ow, it hurts my eyes or brain just to see that sharp thing.
That's a pretty good way to put it, yeah. Someone with aichmophobia might actively avoid kitchens or workshops, places with sharp things, because of the car.
Whereas someone with visual looming syndrome might just feel awful if they happen to glance at a pair of scissors on the desk. Different trigger, different response.
Exactly, a crucial distinction.
Okay, so let's sort of pull this together then. We started with ichmophobia, the core fear of sharp things, straight from the Greek for point and fear.
The foundation.
Then we clarified how it relates to, but isn't quite the same as, the very specific fear of medical needles, that's needle phobia or,
Trypanophobia.
right, trypanophobia. And then we distinguished both of those from visual looming syndrome, which is about the visual perception causing discomfort, not fear per se.
Nicely summarized. And really understanding that root, meaning acme, point, helps keep the basic definition clear.
It does. So thinking about this, sharp objects are everywhere, aren't they? Kitchens, offices, crafts, and medical stuff is pretty common too. It makes you wonder, beyond the obvious fear of getting a shot or using a knife, what are some of the less obvious everyday challenges someone with aichmophobia might face? Just navigating the world.
That's a really insightful question to leave things on. It probably impacts daily life in ways many of us wouldn't even consider.